Good evening, DPS families. Welcome to Evenings with Family Academy, a DPS virtual class series. My name is Gregory Jones, Family Engagement Coordinator, and I would like to welcome you all to our class tonight. Tonight, we have Tanita Flowers with us. She will be interpreting our presentation, or actually presenting our Spanish presentation tonight at 7:15, and she will be sitting in with us tonight. And we are so thankful that you all are taking time out to spend with us tonight for this class. We have a great class for you tonight: homework help and virtual resources for students K-12. Our presenter for tonight is Mr. John David Becker. He is a social studies teacher at Early College here in Durham Public Schools. He has prepared a wonderful presentation. So, Mr. Becker, the show is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jones. Welcome, everybody. And again, thank you so much for coming tonight. There's a lot of things you can do with your time, and we really appreciate seeing you here. My name is Dave Becker. I've been teaching in Durham Public Schools for 14 years now, all of those years at the Early College High School on the campus of North Carolina Central University. And I teach social studies there, and also I taught for many years our freshman seminar class. And that's where I really started to put together a lot of things about how we can assist our kids at home. And that's really what we're here for tonight. And obviously, there's no more important time to know how to assist our kids at home than right now when they're all at home. So let's go ahead and get started. Family Academy is just an absolutely fantastic part of the Durham Public Schools family, and I have been very happy to be working with Family Academy for the last 5 years now. Family Academy is acting as a liaison between families and the schools themselves. We're trying to provide as many resources for families as possible to navigate some of the different systems that are out there, everything from our literacy coaches to counseling to just helping our kids succeed. And that's really what we all want. And that's what this evening is about. So what we're really trying to get tonight are four fairly simple but very important concepts. And the first one is we want to talk about setting expectations for our kids. Last night I talked to K through 5 parents, and tonight is 6 through 12. And so obviously, as our kids get older, those expectations are going to change, or at least the way that we follow through with the expectations. So we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. We also want to talk about the optimal atmosphere for our kids to get their work done in. And I'll talk especially about the fact that this is potentially very challenging right now while everybody is at home doing school. You may have kids that are college age who are doing the same thing, or younger kids. You may be working remotely yourself right now. And so there are some special challenges, but we'll talk about what we want to try to accomplish there. And then I want to share with you a variety of resources that are out there that you can point your child to, or you can go to yourself if you're trying to assist them with some of their work or projects. And then finally, I want to talk about how important it always is, but especially right now, to have a proactive communication system with your child's teachers. And again, as I said, this is always really critical, but right now it's especially important. And I'll talk a little bit about why I think that is when we get to that part. So we are going to be looking at the purposes of homework, setting our expectations, try to talk about workspaces. How do I help and how do I not help, which is sometimes just as important. Resources, our parent-teacher communication, and then we'll be taking any questions you have. So if you do have questions during the presentation tonight, please put them in the live feed, and Mr. Jones will copy them over into the Zoom feed, which is where I am, and I will be very happy to answer any of those that I can to the best of my ability. So without further ado, here we go. I would like for everybody to take about 30 seconds and solve this math equation. All right, I don't even think I have to give you 30 seconds because unless you are way advanced in math, this probably looks like gibberish to you. It definitely does to me. I put this up here because I like to make the point that Sometimes we can be intimidated helping our kids with homework, especially our older kids, because they may be working on skills and concepts that we never did or that we did so long ago that we don't remember. Personally, I never got to a level of math that was even pre-calculus. I think I made it through high school and college with never going higher than an Algebra 2 thing. So I'm not proud of that, but that just is what it is. And so when my kids come to me at school and they need some quick help with the math problem because they have a test next period, sometimes I feel very intimidated that I can't help them because I'm seeing things that look like this. So I want to talk to you tonight a little bit about how we don't have to be masters of the content in order to be able to effectively help our kids. All right, so let's take a look at the purposes of homework. Like, why do teachers give homework? And first of all, let's acknowledge that right now, all work is homework. Every kid in DPS is pretty much nothing but homework. Every assignment is homework. And I can't speak for teachers at every school, but I know that at our school and many other schools that I know about, we are trying to make homework or things that the kids are doing outside of class especially meaningful. We're trying to stay away from busy work. We're trying to stay away from those types of things because we know the amount of screen time that kids are doing already. Having said that, there are still a lot of really important reasons for having our kids doing assignments outside of the regular Zoom class schedule. One of those that's really important is just additional practice and rehearsal. If a child learns a new math skill that day, oftentimes it's the repetition of doing it over and over again that helps them to really cement it in their minds so that they're ready to go to the next step. Or maybe they're learning about a way to compose sentences for an essay. They need to apply that. They learn it in the Zoom classroom with their teacher, and now they have something where they have to practice that and apply it. And that is what we call enrichment, all right? Oftentimes, too, students will find a topic that they're really interested in, and they want to go deeper on it. I've had students who have investigated everything from the Communist Manifesto to Dante's Inferno because I gave them a tiny overview of it in class. And so oftentimes this is a way for a kid to follow her her own academic curiosity, and that's something we always want to foster and encourage. From a teacher's standpoint, and I am a classroom teacher, these classwork and homework assignments are acting as an informal assessment. In other words, not something that I'm necessarily giving the student a grade for, but it helps me to understand their level of comprehension and mastery. So that way I can know if I need to go back over something again with the whole class or just with a segment of the class. It helps me to differentiate the types of work that I give people and everything else. So all of this stuff that comes back to us is a really critical step in us knowing what our kids know and what they can do. And I want to pause here to say, just add this in for virtual school. This is really critical right now because normally in a class, after a couple of weeks, we get to know our kids. And I can tell by the look on their face, by their body language, by their tensed up shoulders or whatever else, whether they're getting a concept or not. And trying to do that with 18 little squares on my screen is very difficult. It's super challenging. So I have to really count on the work that comes back in because I can't count on those nonverbal cues that I'm so used to being able to take a look at. And then finally, homework helps to create a partnership between the school and you, the family. When you know what your kids are working on, it helps you to know what they should be mastering. It should help you to know the workload that they have coming up so that if you are planning family things or if they have other responsibilities around the home, that maybe those are all things that can be taken into consideration and work together. Right? So that way it's not just the kid dropping on you, I can't do that this weekend. I can't go to Granny's this weekend because I have a 5-page paper. If we can get this relationship going, those are things that we're going to know. One of the most important things with all students, regardless of the age, is to set expectations for what they're going to do. And as I mentioned before, as kids get older, we tend to give them more independence, which is exactly what we should be doing. But that doesn't mean that we're abdicating or doing away with knowing what's going on or looking after what they're doing. And I don't mean in a way that we don't trust them. I mean in a way to make sure that they're setting themselves up for success and also not stressing themselves out too much. So most kids thrive on a regular schedule, and that's what we want you to encourage your students to do. If they've got homework or they've got an assignment or a project that they need to do, having a set time that they do that on a daily basis is really, really, really helpful for kids. And in this time of COVID, it's also a really valuable learning opportunity for them to learn how to balance their schoolwork with their social life, such as it were, and their family responsibilities and everything else. And that's a really important 21st century skill. And it's particularly important now that most of us are stuck in the house all the time. It was very difficult for me last spring as a distance learning teacher to try to figure out, when did my day end? If I got a message from a kid at 9 o'clock at night asking a question about an assignment, should I respond to it or should I, finding that balance and setting those boundaries between school and life. I highly, highly recommend and encourage that you get yourself paired with your student on Canvas if you are not already. Canvas is our official learning platform that we're using in Durham Public Schools. And if you get paired with your student on Canvas, that allows you to go in and not only look at his or her grades in Canvas, but also to access what the assignments are, see what some of the materials are and everything else. And that gives you a much better idea of what's going on. You can see due dates, there are calendars and everything else. So that way, it's a way that you can have peace of mind of knowing if your child is being smart about setting deadlines for herself or whatever it happens to be. Also follow along with PowerSchool. Our Canvas grades sync up to PowerSchool typically every 24 hours. So in PowerSchool, which is the official grading system, it's great to look in there because if you see that there's an assignment and your child does not have a grade for that assignment, it provides the opportunity to ask him or her. And maybe it's just because the teacher has not graded theirs yet, but they've graded other people's. And that happens sometimes, but it could also be because they're missing the assignment or they forgot about it. And it's always okay to confirm completion with kids. It doesn't matter how old they are. You can say you want to look at it out of curiosity, which oftentimes you do. Oh, I want to see what you did on your project. How did it turn out? What did your thing look like that you had to make, or your video that you had to create, or the poem that you had to write? And that can create a great conversation between you and your child as well. If the kid knows that all of these things are expectations, it makes everybody's job easier, and hopefully it is reducing stress on them as well, which is so important right now. I also want to talk about the importance of planners. In the earlier grades, in the lower grades, typically in normal school times, kids will come home with a packet that shows what's going on that week, all the different assignments and everything else. You're less likely to see that in high school and middle school. And so having kids learn how to use planners correctly is a really, really important life skill that will help them out really forever. They don't have to be paper planners like the one that I have shown right here. There's lots of great electronic ones. They can use their calendar in Canvas to do that. But I really urge you to encourage your kids to make use of that because there's so much going on right now. And it's hard to keep up and it's hard to keep track. It's hard enough for us as adults to do that. And so if they get themselves in the habit of writing things down, putting in deadlines, again, what we're trying to do is alleviate that stress. There's nothing more stressful than waking up one morning and all of a sudden remembering you have a big project due. Whereas if it had been in a calendar and you're using your calendar every day, you're going to see it and you're going to act accordingly, hopefully. So planners are really, really key. And it's never too late to start using the planner. I know we're well into the semester now, but you can create a planner or go buy one for cheap someplace and start using it now. And if they're not, definitely for second semester, that would be a great habit to pick up. All right, let's talk about workspaces for a minute. And I want to start off by saying that right now there are a lot of challenges to this. And We have families that have multiple kids all working from home, that could, again, range from college age all the way down to kindergarten. We've got them competing for bandwidth and noise levels and everything else. We may have adults working in the home as well, or just being home. And so there are a lot of challenges. And so I'm putting it out there right now to say that if you can do all of these things for your kid, fantastic. If you can't, I'm just urging you to do the best that you can and help them do the best that they can. Optimally, our kids are going to have a comfortable and well-lit space, and one that can be kind of personalized, like they have at school. I know my high school kids, they personalize their lockers and they personalize all their notebooks and all those types of things. So having a space that they can be in that is their workspace, that they can walk away from when it's not work time. I know I have a lot of students right now who are working in their bedrooms because that's where it's the quietest and it's the easiest for them to focus. And you know what? That's great. Optimally, I would love for them to have a little table or a spot in another part of the house so that their, sort of private time in their room is totally separate from school, so that they can build a little, barricade there. But that's not always possible. Ideally, kids are going to learn best and focus best if they're sitting up. And again, I'll go to my own students because they tell me, oh, I'm just laid out in the bed right now. That's why my camera's not turned on. And that's fine. That's fine if it's working, but it's probably not optimal. And when kids are sitting up, they're focusing more and they can get more done in less time. And again, that's a premium for them to reduce that stress level. If possible, a low traffic area of the house, which is almost impossible now with everybody home, I know. Stocked with supplies, making sure that they don't have a reason, oh, I can't do this because I don't have any pencils, or I need this. Obviously, we're doing so much on the computer now that the technology is really their most important supply. But if they do need things for, I still have my kids create some art projects and things that they then take photographs of and upload those JPEG files. So maybe they do need some markers and some highlighters. And most of my kids still take notes in a regular notebook as well. So those types of things. Music is one of those things that parents ask me about all the time. They say, I can hear my kid, he's blasting his headphones while he's doing work and he's singing along. Is that good, bad, indifferent, whatever? The studies have shown that music helps kids to focus and concentrate, and most importantly, to retain information. But the bad news for most kids is they're talking about music that has no words, right? Having said that, if your student loves to listen to music while he or she does homework and they're doing well, they're succeeding, they're thriving, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I say that all the time. Those things that I talk about in this training and lots of others, and somebody will always raise their hand and say, well, my kid doesn't do anything like that and she has straight A's. And I say, cool. Keep doing the same thing then. You should also monitor your kids as well as you can. And that doesn't mean sitting over their shoulders. It just means that if you know they have a deadline coming up, just checking on them, making sure that they're focused, and also making sure that they're taking breaks. I do a lot of one-on-one conferences with my students this semester. And half the time they're surprised because I'm the one saying, okay, I know you're working really hard on this, but you need to take it back a notch. Not because I don't want the great quality and I love your dedication and your effort, but you're actually making yourself not feel very good because you're so keyed up about it. So, we're trying to work with a situation where we're trying to be as flexible as we possibly can, and I encourage that for you as well. All right, so now that we've looked at kind of the spaces and the expectations, let's talk about actually some things that we can do to help our kids. Even if we don't know the content very well, or we don't want to sit down and read that story that they're reading to try to help them through. What we want to do is try to think about how do we help them get unstuck if they're stuck. And I want to point out right now before I go on that sometimes kids have trouble because they don't understand the concept or the content or what it is that they're actually supposed to do. And that's really what I'm here to address tonight. There are other times, though, especially now, where our kids are getting stuck because they are experiencing severe burnout, they're having social anxiety because of being away from their friends, They're having, lots of heavy emotional things happening because of the atmosphere that we're living in right now. I am not qualified really to address those, but I don't want to downplay them either. And so it's really important as we go through and talk about if our kids are experiencing academic difficulties, you know your kid better than anybody else. And that's a call for you to make. And if you feel like it's just they don't understand what's happening, great, we can work with that. If they don't know where the resources are, we can work with that. But if they're feeling depressed, if they're feeling very, very anxious, those are things where it's really important to reach out to the school. Talk to the teacher, let them know what's going on. Talk with the counselors at the school. It is really critical right now. And I'm just going to say it. Right now for me, and I think for all teachers in DPS, we want our kids to make academic progress. We want to set high bars and have our kids go to them. We know in DPS that every child can learn and will learn. But at the same time right now, we're not willing to sacrifice our kids' emotional and mental health just so that they can hit some benchmark that we've decided is important. So it's really important that we have those conversations with our kids and also with the teachers and the counselors at the school. All right, so here's some things we can talk about. Again, how do I know if they're struggling? One of the things we want to look at first is, do they understand what they're supposed to do? Are they stuck on the assignment not because they don't understand the concept, the content, but because they don't know what they're supposed to do with it? Am I supposed to write an essay? Is this a short story? I'm confused. How do I turn this in? That's one kind of problem, okay? And so diagnosing that is really important. And sometimes kids don't articulate that very well. What are you stuck about? I don't know everything. I don't understand this. And so that's where the follow-up question needs to be. Do you not understand the content, the learning stuff, the academic stuff, or what it is that you're supposed to do? And there's two different solutions to those. One of the things that can help is ask the student to read the instructions out loud to you, and then say them back in his own words or her own words. That way we can see if they've processed that information and they understand what's expected of them. Sometimes we can make the diagnosis right there because you look at the instructions and maybe you find them to be confusing too. Well, great. Then it's time to contact the teacher for clarity. Are the instructions posted someplace with some additional resources? I can almost guarantee you that right now in Canvas, that's where you're going to find all of the assignments and the instructions. And oftentimes there will be links to resources right along with them. So that's a great place to double check too. Do they have everything they need to do the assignment? Is their technology working okay? Do they have any physical supplies that they need? Ask them if they've asked their teacher. Most teachers have implemented ways to communicate safely with students, either through email. I use the Remind system, which a lot of teachers do, which is a way that we can actually text with students without exchanging phone numbers, and all of it can be monitored by the administration at the school. So that's a great way to communicate with teachers. And teachers will set the boundaries. They'll say, I'll take texts from kids up till 8 o'clock at night, but nothing after that, or not on weekends or whatever. And that varies from teacher to teacher. And definitely be on the lookout for frustration that is not coming because they don't get how to do things, but just because they're burned out. And I call it Zoom fatigue. It's just screen time issues, because even if we only keep the kids, like I have 85-minute classes and I usually keep my kids in the Zoom for about 40 minutes. And then I give them work that they can work on after that outside of the meeting, but it's still work on the computer for the most part. It's still screen time. So be watching for that and be mindful of it and be understanding if kids need to step away from that and do something else for a little while. All right, some other ways to help. I already talked a little bit about identifying the issue. Is it comprehension or is it the instructions? If it's the instructions and the two of you can't figure it out, or the three of you or whoever else is there, then that's time to reach out to the teacher. That's really the best way to do it. Or if the student has a peer that they're close with who has the same class, have them contact the peer and say, can you explain this to me? If it's comprehension, now we're looking at something different. And I'm going to share some resources with you in a couple of minutes that can help with that part. I like to ask kids what I call leading questions. Remember back to the math problem I showed you at the beginning. Now, I would have no idea what to do there. But one thing I could do is I can ask my student who had come to me, I can say, all right, what needs to happen here? All right, and they might say, well, I'm trying to solve an equation, which means I've got to get this has to equal this at the end. Okay, cool. Now I know that they know what they're supposed to do. So then I might ask, all right, how do you start something like that? What is the first step? And sometimes they'll say, well, first I have to subtract this from both sides, or I have to find a common thing, or whatever. Okay, I have to try to isolate the X. All right, well, now you know a little bit more about what they know. And then maybe it's the next step that they get stuck at. And diagnosing that is so important because sometimes they don't even recognize it. If they don't even know how to start, then that also gives us some great information, because now we know that that's going to be something where they have to kind of go back to the beginning with the teacher and learn how to do that skill. Right? It's really important when they get stuck to first have them try to help themselves. Ask them what resources are out there that's not the teacher that might be able to help you through this, and find out if they know about any. And if they don't, I'm going to give you a whole bunch in just a minute. In my opinion, as somebody who's been teaching for 20 years now, this is one of the most crucial 21st century skills, is knowing where to find resources and how to look at those resources and judge whether or not they're good resources for me or not. Because that's really what the 21st century is about. It's about information gathering and vetting that information. And so the more kids practice this, the better they get at it. Now, if they get stuck with that, obviously we want to help them, but we want to kind of throw them out there a little bit first and see if they can come up with a solution. If they can't, then we're there to step in as a safety net. We never want to complete work for kids, and I don't think there are many parents that do that, at least not in my experience. But what happens then is, as a teacher, I'm not getting an accurate reflection of what that kid knows and can do. And at the end of the day, that's what I'm trying to get across to them. I tell kids all the time, don't worry about grades. Grades are super important, but if you learn the material and you truly learn it, then the grades will follow, all right? And so all of these different assignments that kids do are a really important communication tool to me, the teacher, to know what they're good at and what they need some more work in. And in that way, it's my job to provide them with that support to make sure that they can get up to where they need to be, right? And so that is the most helpful thing for us, is to get the kids' work, no matter how bad it might be. That is an important tool for us as well. As I said just a second ago, we don't want to be in a rush to help. And that's not the same thing as being unhelpful. It's saying that we want them to try to help themselves first. Now, if you sense, and again, you know your kids better than anybody, if you sense that they are at a boiling point, a very high level of frustration, and they're about to lose it, absolutely step in and help. Absolutely. But if they're just like, I don't know what to do, then encourage them and try to get them to practice more self-reliance, especially as the older that they get. If they really get stuck and even the resources can't help them, please encourage them to turn in whatever they do have done. I say something is better than nothing for a couple of reasons. The main one being that, again, as a teacher, if I get something from the student and I see that they didn't finish it, it allows me to have a conversation with them, where I can say, did you not finish this because you didn't understand it, or was it because you ran out of time? Maybe you weren't organized, or you need some time management help. Those are all different problems. Not understanding it and being bad at time management are two completely different things. If I get nothing from the student, then I have no idea what's going on. And so turning in something is better than nothing. And again, during this time, during virtual school, these assignments are absolutely crucial for the teacher to know how the kid is doing, right? And please, 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 lots and lots of wellness checks with our students. I'm sure you're doing that as great parents already. But let's be very intentional about it on the daily. How did school go today? It was boring. Okay, well, how come? Was it the content? Were they talking about something that was really dull that you already knew about? No, I'm just so sick of this. Okay, wow, now I've got a whole new conversation going on. So just checking in to see how they're doing. There is nothing wrong with the time-honored question of what did you learn at school today? And when they say nothing, say, I find that really hard to believe. Tell me one thing you learned today. And get them talking about it, all right? You'll be surprised what you find out. And to kind of round out this part of the presentation, I think that always, and especially right now, encouragement, 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 encouragement. I tell my students every single Friday how proud I am of them for getting through another week of virtual school. They need to hear that over and over again, that we are acknowledging that this is a really difficult time. And it's hard for us too. It's really hard for teachers. I can tell you that teachers are working harder than they ever have. Support staff and administration and folks at Family Academy are putting in more hours and working harder than they ever have. But we have to get across to the kids that this is important, and we have to encourage them. So praise is a huge motivator for students, and you guys know that already. But sometimes we, especially with kids that are normally like really high achievers, we forget sometimes because we're so used to them doing well. So when they are struggling during this time, and most of them will at some point, we're telling them, hey, you know what, you got a 6 out of 10 on the quiz last time and you got 8 out of 10 this time. That's awesome, you did better. All right? Now maybe you still want them to have higher than an 80, but they did improve, and that's the important thing. Tell them when they've really knocked one out of the park. If you're going through their Power School grades, and you see that they got 100 on some project, ask to see it. Say, wow, you must have really done a great job on this, you know, excellent. It's also important, especially as our students get older again, they need to know when they haven't done their best work. And we can do that in a way that is supportive and loving. It doesn't have to be a knockdown. We make that criticism constructive. But we also want our kids to know we still have a bar for them. We still have expectations. And we want to make sure that they're doing the best they can given the circumstances. And again, encourage lots of downtime. You know, when they're working, if they have a big project to do, even if they were bad and they left it for really late, and so they're having to cram it all in at the last minute, still encourage them to just like shut everything down for 10 or 15 minutes, you know, take a walk the dog, you know, play with their brother or sister for a minute or whatever they need to do. Just encourage that downtime to kind of reset that and stop that stress from building up. All right, I want to share with you some really great resources we have. All of these are things that can be accessed for free, and that's why I chose them. You know, of course, there are a lot of different things that are out there that people can use, but these are a few that I've been recommending for a fair amount of time, all right? And so I'm gonna kind of talk about them just for a second, then I'm actually gonna show them to you for a minute. There's stuff from the Durham County Library. There's a free service called Khan Academy that I'm gonna show you. There's lots of great stuff on YouTube. YouTube is not just for funny videos and influencers and music. There is a ton of great free school stuff on there. There are digital resources from DPS, and Family Academy has a whole library of resources. Presentations like the one tonight that you can go through and watch, and different handbooks and different things like that. So I'm gonna minimize the presentation just for a second so I can show you a couple of these. This one is called BrainFuse, and this is a service of the Durham County Library System. And the great news is that every kid in DPS automatically has a library card for the Durham County Library. It's simply their DPS student ID, and that's it. And so every student can access this, even if you haven't gone in and signed up for a library card. And what BrainFuse is live homework help from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. Every day, all right? And this is one-on-one real-time help, like through a chat type system. So this is great if you and your student have worked on something, maybe it's the weekend and it's due on Monday, and you are just lost or can't find resources that you need, BrainFuse is a great place to go, because if the tutors there can't help directly, they definitely have lots of other resources that they can refer you to. So when you get to BrainFuse, you just click on this Go to Help Now. There will be a place for them to put in their student ID number, and then it just opens up into kind of a chat type thing where they can say, hey, I'm working on a science project and I really don't understand this, or I need to find a book about da-da-da or whatever. And that's real-time homework help. And this can be for kids K all the way through 12. Okay? Another one that is an absolutely fantastic resource is called Khan Academy. And this is a free resource that actually started on YouTube. Just this guy named Sal Khan, who was helping his, I think his niece and nephew who lived on the other side of the country with their math and science. And so he would make these videos for them, and then it just turned into a thing. And now it's this gigantic website that has instruction on math and science all the way from elementary up through college level. It has some art history and some social studies, some American history, world history. It really leans towards math and science, in my opinion, but what they have there is absolutely fantastic. So when you go into Khan Academy, you just sign up for a free account, and that can be as a student, as a teacher, as a parent, or whatever. And then they'll give you a whole menu of different types of courses, like algebra or geometry or biology, and you click off on those. And you can also use this search function up here. I did a search earlier for a multiplication, which would be more for elementary school, of course. But when it goes to it, you'll get videos that have actual instructions, with a whiteboard and everything going on. There will be practice quizzes, practice tests, activities, manipulatives that they can do. It really is an outstanding resource. So if you're trying to help your kid with math, for instance, and it's a type of math you don't remember, or maybe you never did like me, then this is a great place to go. I also mentioned the Family Academy Library, which we have right here. And as you go down through this, you'll see that we've got a video archive, a virtual archive over here. There's also information on technology issues, if you're having issues with the Chromebooks or hotspots or any of those types of things. Canvas, PowerSchool, and Zoom are all in here if you're having trouble manipulating through any of those. There's academic and learning support things. There's stuff for family wellness. All of these resources in both English and Spanish. It really is a fantastic thing that's been built up over the last few years and well worth your time. And just to show you an example, and again, this is more for elementary, but if you've got a kid who's struggling with parts of speech, I literally just typed in parts of speech for students, and I got about 75 hits immediately, where there's different ways to present. If you find a particular type of instruction that your kid really likes, they can subscribe to that channel, so it's very easy to go back and access. So all of these things are out there. They're all online. They're all free. My recommendation to students, and I do this with my students all the time, and I'll do it with you as well, is if you spend the afternoon going and finding these resources, just make a folder in your bookmarks in the Chromebook or your device or whatever you're using, and just bookmark them. So that way, when you do run up against trouble, you don't have to say, oh, what was that brain thing again at the library? You've already got it marked, and you can just go right in there, click on it, and you're in business. So that is a real tip that really helps out. And I've had a lot of kids who've graduated from early college who say that when they started their college classes, one of the first things that they did was go through and find resources that would help them outside of class and create a bookmark list, because I encourage them to do that in class. So that is definitely something that works in the real world. Okay. All right, so there are a couple of slides here that are sort of reiterating some of the things that I was just showing you. I want to go back here for just a second. This is BrainFuse again, and you can also do test prep here, which can be really valuable for people. So if your student has an EOC coming up, either now or in the spring, or if they've got an AP exam that's coming up, all of those things are covered at BrainFuse as well. All right, and again, you just go to the Durham County Library site, or you can do a search for BrainFuse Durham Library, and it'll come up. It'll be the top choice. I also talked about Khan Academy. It's a free account, lots of video lessons, lots of practicing. And one great thing about Khan too is they've developed a complete Spanish language version of the website as well. So if that's a more comfortable format for learning, then that is a great thing to do too. And that's at es.khanacademy.org, or in English at khanacademy.org. All right, those are some great resources for your family, for your student. Students of all ages, by the way, all of those resources. And I'm going to finish up here tonight by talking about setting up some communication systems with your students' teachers. And obviously, as kids get older and they don't just have the one classroom teacher anymore, and they're changing classes, and they could have anywhere from 4 to 7 teachers a day, this becomes really, really critical. So one of the things that I encourage you to do, if you haven't already, with your kids' teachers, is reach out to them and let them know what your preferred method of contact is, and find out what their preferred method of contact is. I do a survey of my parents at the very beginning of every semester, and I find out, if I need to get in touch with you, do you want me to call? Do you want me to text? Do you want an email? What hours are the best ones? What is the main language spoken in your home? And all of those different things, so that if the need arises, I know when and how to contact them. But you can do the same thing in reverse. Reach out to the teacher and say, hey, if I need to contact you, if I have a question about an assignment, or if my kid does, or I want to talk to you about how she's feeling right now, or some anxiety that she's having about the class, it's great to know. And teachers will be really honest. They'll say, yeah, you can text me on the weekends, that's fine. Or no, you know what, I have these office hours, and this is when I deal with stuff like this. So that's really important to know. That way there's no hurt feelings, misunderstandings, this person's not responding to me, or whatever. Everything's very clear. Again, please make sure to follow your student on Canvas. If their teacher is using Google Classroom, there's parental ways to go in and be a part of that classroom as well, and also in the Power School too. Okay, so all of those things are really important. Ask the teacher if there are additional resources. I just shared a whole bunch with you, but teachers have their own little treasure trove of resources that they go to time and time again. And a lot of times, especially when the kids get into the higher grades, those are very geared toward the specific course. So if your kid is learning about British Lit right now and they're really struggling with Shakespeare, I will bet you anything that their English teacher, if somebody asks them, says, oh yeah, you know what, here's this cool thing where they've got Shakespeare written in modern English that can help them to understand it a little bit better, or whatever. So always reach out to the teachers. We almost always have some additional resources that we may not think to share them with the kids because we don't know that they need them every time. And then obviously, if there are issues going on about anything, about comprehension, grades, missed assignments, you feel like your child's having a very difficult time mentally or emotionally around school, please schedule a meeting with the teacher. I mean, it can be a Zoom meeting, it can be a telephone call, it could include multiple teachers if you set it up that way. You can include the counselor, but we really need to be proactive about that right now. We definitely don't want to wait until the kid's really far behind or has a really low grade, because that just adds to the stress and it tends to compound the problems. And I've definitely dealt with that with a few kids this year already. And thankfully, I had some parents that were very proactive, because again, I'm not seeing the kids' body language and the cues and things like that that are coming up. So I don't know unless somebody tells me. Because even if I ask, they might not tell me. But if a parent calls and says, uh-oh, yeah, I think there's a problem here, then we can talk. So those meetings are really important right now. So I'm going to leave you with this. I hope that you've got some information out of this tonight that can be helpful for you or reassuring. If you're already doing some of these things, fantastic. Keep up the good work. If you feel like there's some things you want to try, that's fantastic too. Obviously, every kid is different. You know your child the best. One of the things that can really help is to write down goals to follow through. So if any of these topics are things that you feel like you need to work on with your child or your child needs to work on, write them down. You know, here's some scheduling expectations, or here's some expectations I have for you in terms of when you're going to do your work. I don't want you doing your work at 1 o'clock in the morning. I want you doing it earlier so you can sleep. If there's a way to create an optimal space or a space that is conducive to learning, that's great. And again, we're acknowledging in this time that may not always be possible. If you saw some of the resources I shared with you, please go in there and find them and bookmark them, BrainFuse or Khan Academy or whatever else. And make sure you've got your teacher's information. A lot of times parents don't look for that until there's a real need right now for it. And never be afraid to just check in with your teacher. Even if your kid's doing great, they're getting good grades, check in with the teacher and just say, how does she seem in class? Or, is there any big assignments coming up? And having those conversations, it's so amazing how much information comes out of them and how much better we're able to help our kids. And that's what we're all here for at the end of the day and at the beginning of the day. All right, so questions to ask yourself. How do I know if my kid has an assignment? Do I have access to Canvas? Am I looking through PowerSchool or Google Classroom? Am I holding my child accountable for completing those assignments? If they're not getting them done, am I asking them why? Did you not understand it? Did you stress out? Did you run out of time? Are you feeling overwhelmed? All of those are different things that can happen. Is my kid doing their schoolwork in the best location for them? If you know your kid is very easily distracted, having a TV on and music on and their phone sitting there with FaceTime going with their friend while they're doing their work might not be the best thing. Can I assist my child with asking good questions and taking the lead in communicating with their teacher during this virtual time especially? Not being afraid to reach out through Remind or a message through Canvas or an email to say, hey, I don't get this, can you help me? Do you know how to make contact with the teacher? And finally, based on your kid's progress, do I need to schedule a conference with the teacher? And right now, we're very well into the first semester. My school will be done before Christmas time with the first semester, and most schools will be done about the middle of January with the semester. So it's not too late. If kids are having a tough time with their grades right now, there is lots of time to get things made up, but we don't want to wait too much longer. So check their progress, go in, look at PowerSchool, look at the Canvas grades, have a talk with your child, and then have a talk with the teacher if you feel like it's merited. All right, folks, that is my presentation for you tonight. I really appreciate you being here. If you have any questions, I hope that you were able to put them in the chat. Even if you have one later, please contact Family Academy. They can pass them on to me, or you can look me up at the Early College High School. It's John_Becker at dpsnc.net, and I'd be really happy to communicate with you. So having said that, I'm going to pass this back to Mr. Jones. And again, I thank you all, and I hope you have a wonderful night.
Thank you, Mr. Becker, for that great presentation, homework help, and resources for our 6 through 12 students. I want to thank everyone that was able to tune in tonight, and we hope that this presentation was helpful to you. And it is available on our Facebook page, and it will be available on our Family Academy website on dpsnc.net. Again, thank you all so very much. Hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and good night.